All right, everyone, so this is after you've followed the written directions that are included with the file or the files. You will receive actually 2 files so that you can stitch out each one and have them fit back to back. So they're mirror images of the star. So once you've followed the written directions to stitch it out, and it covers a little bit on how to rinse and all that, but after you have rinsed away the stabilizer, only until it has disappeared from the little holes and the gooiness is gone, pat it dry gently with a towel, and to remove the excess water, take an empty bobbin. We all have those laying around, and probably you'll want to use a plastic one so you don't use a metal one and cause it to rust. But use whatever works for you, but I found that this works beautifully, and we all have bobbins. So while the lace is still wet, this one, obviously, I think you can tell it's dry now, but the whole point of this is to make this little bump in the middle of the star. So you center it over your bobbin while it is still wet. Press down the edges like this because you want the edges to be flat. You just want the center to be shaped with a little cup on the inside. Then I found a jar that happens to fit around that inner corners of the it fits just right on those inner corners of the star right here. And you want to weigh if the jar isn't quite heavy enough, you could put a little bit of weight on it with a small book or whatever. But you just want to leave it like that and very patiently wait until it's absolutely dry, and then we can proceed. But if you don't have a jar that fits just perfectly like this, you can weigh it down with something else, several items if you need to, all the way around, so that these inner corners are flat. And these outer corners will just naturally follow suit. Don't worry too much if they're up in the air a little bit. You just don't want these to be up in the air. They need to be flat against the surface, and then you let it dry completely. Okay, so to prepare the dowel, you can cut it any length you want. If you think a short one of just a few inches is better than a really long one, you know, that's totally up to you. I made mine 22 inches because I wanted it to be a little more dramatic, but it's up to you. That's, you know, that may be something you want to consider too as a safety feature, is to make them short. All right, so I used cotton to pad the ends of the dowel. I put glue, and the glue that I like to use for most of my projects is called either Fabri-Tac, which is one of the brands, or Fabri-Fix. And basically, it's almost like a glue gun consistency when the glue melts with high heat. But of course, this is not a glue gun, so it's just cold glue, and it's very gooey, and it only takes a couple of seconds for it to get tacky enough to hold your items. So I like to use this for almost everything. So I would put glue all around the tip of my dowel, and this is for the part that's going inside the star. So you'll want to take your star that's been prepared, as I described earlier, and make sure you don't bring that cotton down too far, because you don't want it sticking out beyond the edge of the star, and you want it to clear your little loop here. So you may want to wind the cotton maybe this high on the dowel. So you'll want to put some glue there to grab the cotton to start with. And once it sticks to the glue, you can just roll it around like you're making cotton candy. And I like to go over the top of that dowel and kind of twist it. Get it on there really well. Maybe a little more glue to finish off that. I used 2 cotton balls for the inside of the star. So you would want maybe a little glue there to hold that in place. Then you can open up the second cotton ball. They tend to, the ones that I have here are just rolled, and these are just regular makeup type of cotton balls you get at the grocery store or the pharmacy, just ordinary cotton. And to be honest, the reason I went to find my cotton balls is because I was all out of batting, and it turned out to be, I think this would be much easier to work with than with batting. So you want to add a little more glue here. Attach the second cotton ball. Make sure you're actually patting that in, not just wrapping around it. And you can go over and around and however it works for you. A little more glue to secure it. And that's all you need to make this nicely padded. Make sure it's going to fit inside your star. Yep, that would fit. Inside that little cup we created when the lace was still wet. Then you can use leftovers from netting, or I grabbed this, I didn't have a big enough piece close to me here, but you'll want a bigger piece than this. This is just some netting. You can use tulle, you can use netting, something real thin that you can work with. And I like to wrap the cotton because I don't want this cotton to start poking through my lace on the star, the little holes in the lace. So I want to wrap it in some, even an old stocking would work. So you would wrap this around, and obviously you'd want a bigger piece. Bring it down. It's just like if you were wrapping a lollipop. Bring it down, twist it around. Secure it with some glue down here, wrap it around, and then you take some perlate cotton or some crochet thread or whatever you have handy, wrap it around, tie it nice and tight. It'll look just like a lollipop. And I'll show you a finished one. Alright, so here is what it will look like when it's all done. I've secured all this with glue and tied it off with my crochet thread or my heavy cording. This is the part that goes inside the star, like this. Now the bottom part, remember I said I used 2 cotton balls for this part, for the top. I used 3 cotton balls at the bottom, so it's a little bit bigger. And heck, you can use 4. It's up to you. You can put a styrofoam ball on the end, whatever works for you. The whole point is to pad those ends. Now I used a piece of knit material that I had left over from my fairy tale dress. It's pretty thin and easy to work with, so I used that, but you can use whatever you want. You can add crystals to this if you want to make it even more fairy tale like. I didn't cut this real close at the bottom because I want to be able to cover this with ribbon. So it was a little thick after I gathered it up and tied it. So what I did was I removed some of just cut little triangles out of the bulk in this. I saw where there were some folds and I just went like this. I don't want to get too close to my string. I want to be able to cover that up, so I don't want to get too crazy and get too close to the ball. So I just kind of just took a look and saw where there was extra fullness. Like for example right here, that's not necessary under here, so I'm cutting it out. It doesn't have to be neat, you just need to remove some of that bulk, like right here. on all the way around till you have some of that thickness diminished there. So ultimately what I want to do is, and you can get wider ribbon if you want. There is no rule other than just make it look pretty. So I'm gonna put glue on this, on the ribbon to get me started, and maybe a little on the fabric here. Maybe you can even put glue under here to just secure that. And then I'm gonna wrap it with ribbon and start going down the, I'm doing this upside down and kind of far from me so you can see it. But you can just start wrapping, add a little glue, keep wrapping. I would cut my ribbon a little bit so I could, to the length that I need, and not have it on the spool so that you can wrap it easier. Then add a little more glue. This is kind of crucial here because you're going from thick to transitioning to the actual dowel right there. So secure that with glue, and on and on. So, and you'll do a neater job when you actually have glue holding that for you. And if you want, use this is 1/4 inch ribbon, satin ribbon. You could use a piece of lace, really pretty lace, or whatever you have handy. You can use 3/8 inch ribbon, that would cover easier. You know, whatever works. So that's how you do the bottom. Alright, so here it is with the eyelets tied, the edges have been glued, and everything's nice and snug, but I want to secure this really well to the dowel. So what you want to do is take your ribbon, bring it up under the rod like this, under the dowel, and you want to bring the end up through that eyelet. If I can show you on this video, that would be really good. If it's easier, you can put this on a yarn needle and then just pull it up. But I didn't want to look for my yarn needle, so. Alright, so there's one end. We bring up the other end the same way. Alright, so that wraps that ribbon. Can't really see it. I don't know. It's right there, around the dowel. It doesn't catch this eyelet. Okay, it just goes around the dowel and up through the one eyelet, and then you can bring it, open them up like this. Don't cross them, just open them. And then you can start, you can pull them to the back, cross them, and bring them forward again. And you'll want to do a neat job so you don't have them all twisted, and it should be nice and flat up against the dowel. You can put a drop of glue right here, tie it really tight, add another drop of glue underneath here, and then finish the knot. All right, that's this side is secured. Same thing for the other side. You bring up your ribbon, and I'm using pink for the second one. Why? Because I want to. You can use different colors, you can use the same color. When I put this together, I only had pink and white 1/8 inch ribbon, so I used only pink. I didn't want to put white on it. And since my littlest granddaughter loves pink, I don't think she'll object. So this one is an organza ribbon. So let's see if I can do this. If you have tweezers, that'll help. Okay, so there we go. And I'm just going around the rod, kind of on top of the blue, up above the knot, so that it's snug up against the rod. This is why I wanted to do a video, because this is much easier to show than to explain. If you find a better way to tie it, that's up to you too. There's, like I said, there's lots of possibilities. So I should have had my tweezers sitting here so that I could handle this with tweezers. There it goes. All right, and I want to make sure it's flat and not twisted. All right, like this. Put this out of the way. There it goes. It goes right there. So, bring it back to the front, and you can bring the ends, even the ends out, or leave them odd lengths. I think odd lengths are kind of nice. And oh, I was going to tie it, but no, I don't want you to tie it right there because that's not going to hold anything. All right, so what you do is you pull it apart like I did before. Cross them. Just avoid the blue one. It's fine. Wherever you cross them is fine. Just don't do it on top of the other knot. All right, so they're crossed and brought back toward me like this. And now you can add a drop of glue so that when this ties, it'll sit right on the glue. Add one more drop of glue right there and tie it again. And it is complete and secure. So I want you to see the bottom part of this. I didn't show it to you when it was finished. Here's what I did to the bottom. This is the 3 cotton balls wrapped around the end of the dowel, and then I covered it with scrap fabric. Don't let the fabric get too thick on you, so you want to find a scrap of very thin, something wispy thin, because then you may have an issue when it comes time to wrap it here, because it'll be so thick you won't be able to get a pretty finish. And I happen to have found this ribbon in my stash. I was going to use satin ribbon, but then I found this in my stash, and it has just a tiny bit of glimmer to it, and it just made a perfect bottom to it. So I wrapped it, added glue right in here, started wrapping side by side, made sure it's being held securely. And then at the very end, instead of tapering off, I just went ahead and wrapped 2 or 3 times on top of that last row to give it a little more definition right there. Made sure I had plenty of glue and held it tight until it was very secure. And that was it. And I left this rod natural. It was an old dowel that I had that happens to have kind of a little bit of an aged look to it. I think I like it that way. It looks a little more organic, a little more fairy tale-ish. But you can paint these, you can do whatever you want with the dowel. And that's all there is to it. And I hope you have a lot of fun making these. I think they are precious. Don't forget the crystals and a charm if you want.